Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep today, going to be looking at well, how to silence that inner critic that can totally mess with our confidence, when we're trying to be social and stuff.
It's wild how much power we give that little voice, huh?
It really is. And the piece we're looking at, it's called Once You Stop Talking to Yourself, the shift happens. It jumps right into this idea of shifting your focus outward. Like
Mm.
instead of getting all caught up in our own heads, we should be tuning in to the person right there in front of us.
And there's some seriously cool psychology behind that. When we're like hyper focused on ourselves, how we look or what to say next, our brains actually miss out on all these important social cues.
So it's not just about being polite, it's like we can actually rewire our brains to be more present.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of what they call social fluency comes in. It's all about picking up on those subtle signals, like tone of voice, eye contact, even those tiny little micro expressions. So we end up being more engaging because we're actually reacting to the other person, not just our own thoughts, right?
That makes a lot of sense. It's like we're actually free to listen and respond in a real way instead of just waiting for our turn to talk. But how do we actually make that shift? I mean, it's easier said than done, right?
Oh, for sure. It takes practice. But this piece, it gives us some real techniques. One that really stuck with me was about uh, turning those observations, those little things we notice, into questions. Instead of thinking, do they like my shoes? We could notice something about them and ask, I love that pin. What's the story behind it?
Ooh, I like that. Takes the pressure off us and shows we're actually interested.
Right. And the more you do it, the more natural it gets. It's like exercising a muscle, but the muscle of outward focus.
Okay, outward focus, got it. But let's be real, we're all human, we all make mistakes. And this next point, embracing imperfection. I love their example about mispronouncing a name and just turning it into a joke.
So relatable. But what's cool is that the piece goes beyond just laughing it off. It talks about different kinds of imperfections and how they can actually make our social interactions better?
So not all imperfections are created equal.
Nope, not at all. Like, think about it. There are endearing quirks, and then there are habits that can actually get in the way of connecting with someone. The source, it really makes that distinction. It says we should be aware of what we're putting out there and how other people might see it.
So self-awareness, but not in a critical way, more like taking stock.
Yeah, that's it. It's about owning our imperfections, even poking fun at ourselves, but also working on the things that might be holding us back from really connecting.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Not about being perfect, but about being real.
Yeah.
So we've got outward focus, self-acceptance. Now let's talk about this next layer, cultivating presence. And I don't just mean showing up, I mean being mentally and emotionally there.
Right, and they use this great metaphor in the piece. It's like, imagine you're at a party, but you're glued to your phone the whole time. Are you really there? Presence is about giving your full attention to the moment and the people around you.
I can totally see how that would make someone more captivating, just being present. But what about when we're feeling anxious or distracted? How do we actually get to that place of presence?
Well, the source suggests using some mindfulness techniques even before you go into a social situation, like taking a few deep breaths to ground yourself, or even just mentally scanning your body to see where you're holding tension.
I've heard about those techniques, but I never thought to use them like that. It's like prepping your mental state.
Exactly. By calming our minds and centering ourselves, we can walk into interactions feeling present and open, and that makes us way more approachable. And people pick up on that genuine energy. It puts everyone at ease.
It's not about faking it, it's about creating the right headspace to be our best selves.
Absolutely. And this ties back to quieting that inner critic. When we're grounded and present, those negative thoughts just don't have as much power over us.
So presence is like a superpower. Helps us get over those self-sabotaging habits.
You got it. It lets us focus on what really matters, connecting with other people.
So we've covered some big ones. Outward focus, embracing our flaws, cultivating presence. And speaking of connecting, let's talk about playful banter. It can really level up those social skills. What does our source say about that?
They talk about how playful banter adds a sense of lightness and fun to interactions. They use the classic example of teasing someone about pineapple on pizza, a debate that never dies.
Oh, I love a good pineapple on pizza debate. But there's an art to it, isn't there? How do we know when we're being playful versus taking it too far?
And that's where the source gets really smart. It's not just about telling jokes. They talk about reading the room and being in tune with the other person's sense of humor.
So it's not just about being funny, it's about being aware of the other person's boundaries and what they're comfortable with.
Exactly. And they even talk about different kinds of humor, like observational, self-deprecating, even a bit of wordplay. They want us to experiment and find what feels natural for us. Oh, and they also warn against using humor to hurt people.
It's easy to get caught up trying to be funny and accidentally say something that could hurt someone's feelings.
Right. The point is to make sure everyone's in on the joke and that it's coming from a good place.
So playful banter is about connecting and laughing together, not trying to be the center of attention or put others down.
You said it perfectly.
Okay, so we're building connections, having fun, but we all want to feel validated, right?
Yeah.
What does the source say about that?
This part was really eye-opening. They argue that when we're always seeking approval from others, it actually makes us less confident. It's like saying our self-worth depends on what other people think.
It's like giving away your power.
Right,
So-
exactly. And honestly, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we're too worried about what others think, we come across as insecure, and that's not very appealing.
So the more we chase validation, the less likely we are to find it.
Exactly. The magic happens when we let go of needing that constant approval and just enjoy the interaction for what it is.
So instead of worrying about whether someone likes us, we should focus on genuinely connecting with them.
Yes. That realness, that's what draws people in. It's about being comfortable with who we are, flaws and all, and letting others see the real us.
Speaking of being real, let's talk about vulnerability. A lot of people shy away from it, but the source seems to think it's important for building real connections.
Yeah, you're right. They make it clear that vulnerability isn't about oversharing or dumping all your emotional baggage on someone. It's about being authentic, letting little bits of your true self show through.
So being careful about what you share and who you share it with.
Exactly. They give a great example sharing a meaningful childhood memory. It doesn't have to be some big dramatic story, but it gives a glimpse into who you are at your core.
I like that example because everyone can do that. It's relatable, and it kind of invites the other person to do the same, which builds trust.
Right. Vulnerability is a key part of making those real connections we all want. It's about letting go of the need to be perfect and letting people see us for who we are.
This has been so insightful. We've talked about outward focus, embracing imperfection, being present, playful banter, letting go of the need for validation and vulnerability. And it feels like there's more to explore. What's next on our journey to boost our confidence?
Next up, we're going into the world of nonverbal communication. It's that silent language that says so much. It's amazing how much we communicate without even saying a word.
I've always been fascinated by that. It's like a secret code.
You got it. Our posture, eye contact, even a simple smile can tell someone we're confident, warm, and trustworthy or not.
So our bodies are always sending messages, even when we're quiet.
Exactly. And the source breaks down how we can use nonverbal communication to our advantage.
Let's crack that code. Let's unlock those secrets.
Okay, so let's start with posture, like how we hold ourselves. The source really emphasizes having an open and relaxed stance. You know, think about it. If you're hunched over or fidgeting, it kind of makes you look nervous or like you don't believe in yourself, you know?
Yeah, it's like our body language gives us away, even if we're trying to seem confident.
Totally. But when we stand or sit up straight, shoulders back but relaxed, it gives off a whole different vibe, like you're comfortable and confident.
So good posture basically equals confidence.
Pretty much. And it's not just about how it looks to other people, it's also about how it makes us feel inside. When you stand tall, you literally take up more space, and that can really change how you feel.
Oh yeah, like power posing, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't feel confident, just striking a confident pose can actually boost your confidence.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just posture. The source talks about eye contact, too.
Oh, eye contact, it can be so intense, but also like a little scary sometimes. What does the source say about that?
It's all about finding that balance between showing you're interested and, not staring someone down. They say to think of eye contact as connecting with someone's energy, not just looking at their face.
I like that. So looking with intention, not just staring blankly.
Right. They even mention this triangle technique, moving your gaze from one eye to the other, then down to their mouth. It creates a more natural flow, keeps things engaging without being too intense.
Those are really helpful tips.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the power of a smile.
Oh, for sure. A simple smile makes you more approachable. Instantly. It says, hey, I'm friendly. Come talk to me.
What about when we're just not feeling it, though? Can a fake smile actually work against you?
Great question. The source talks about the difference between a real, genuine smile They call it a Duchenne smile, and it uses the muscles around your eyes versus a fake social smile. The real deal comes across as way more genuine and gets a better response from people.
So it's going to come from that place of genuine connection, not just a forced grin.
Exactly. They even suggest practicing your smile in the mirror to figure out what feels natural and real for you.
Okay, I'm trying that later. What about touch, though? I know that can be kind of tricky, but I'm curious what the source says.
Yeah, they're really careful about that. They emphasize reading the situation and respecting boundaries. Obviously, you never want to make someone uncomfortable. But if it feels right and everyone's okay with it, a light touch on the arm or shoulder can really make people feel connected.
It's like a physical way of saying, I'm here with you.
Exactly. But always pay attention to the other person's cues, whether they seem comfortable with it or not. Some people just aren't huggers.
Yeah, that's so important. Nonverbal communication has so many layers. It's like this intricate dance, constantly reading each other and adjusting. So we've got the posture, the eye contact, the genuine smile. We're even getting good with touch. What's the final piece of the nonverbal puzzle?
It's about our overall energy, the vibe we give off. The source actually uses the word vibe, and I think we all know what that means.
Oh, for sure. You can just feel it when someone has good energy.
Exactly. And they say to pay attention to what's going on inside is our thoughts, feelings, even how our body feels, because that all comes out in our vibe.
So if you're feeling stressed or anxious, other people can sense it, even if you're trying to hide it.
Totally. And it's all about finding ways to cultivate a more positive, calm, and confident state of mind, because that will naturally radiate outward.
It all comes back to that inner work, quieting that inner critic, embracing those imperfections, being present. Those are the foundations for good vibes.
Couldn't agree more. And all these nonverbal cues we've been talking about, they're just tools, really. What really matters is what you're putting out there, being genuine and real.
Right.
When we truly care about connecting with others, our body language just reflects that.
That's such a great point. Okay, so we've covered a lot about nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
But what good is any of it if we're not actually listening to what the other person has to say? I'm really curious to hear what the source has to say about active listening.
Well, they make it really clear that active listening is a lot more than just hearing words. It's about really engaging with the person who's speaking, both with your mind and your heart.
I catch myself zoning out sometimes, especially when I'm tired or have a lot on my mind.
Oh, we all do. But the source really stresses how important it is to be present in the conversation. Put those distractions aside, truly focus on what the other person is saying.
So it's about setting aside your own ego and putting the other person's experience first.
Exactly. And they give some really practical tips on how to become a better active listener.
Tell me everything. What are the main things to remember?
Well, one suggestion is to use your body language to show you're engaged. Things like nodding, making eye contact, leaning in a bit.
Yeah, those are all ways to show you're paying attention without actually interrupting.
Right. And they also talk about reflecting back what you've heard. You can summarize what they said or ask clarifying questions.
So it's not just about passively listening. It's about making sure you understand what they're trying to say.
Exactly. They even mention acknowledging the speaker's emotions. You can do this by saying something like, "It sounds like you're feeling frustrated," or "That must have been really tough."
It's about creating a space where the other person feels heard and understood, like on every level.
You got it. And the source makes this really great point. When we really listen to others, not only does it make our connection with them stronger, but we actually learn and grow from their point of view.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. Listening isn't passive. It's an active way to connect that can really enrich our lives.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea, right? Like, what if instead of that inner critic draining our energy, it actually helped us grow and become more confident?
I know, right? Total game changer.
For sure. And speaking of growth, I have one last challenge for our listeners who are ready to, really level up their confidence.
Ooh, a challenge. I love it. What is it?
Okay, so as you're working on silencing that inner critic and building your confidence, start paying attention to people you meet, in social situations who just have this magnetic energy, those people who just draw others in effortlessly.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. They just
Yeah.
have that it factor,
Exactly. So here's the challenge. Observe them. Not in a weird way, of course. Just be curious and, really pay attention to what they're doing.
Like we're scientists studying social butterflies.
Haha. Yeah, kind of. Watch their body language, how they talk, the stories they tell, how they make other people feel. What is it about them that makes them so magnetic?
It's like we can learn from the pros.
Right. And as you're watching, ask yourself, what can I learn from this person? How can I adapt some of their techniques to make my own interactions better?
So it's not about copying them exactly. It's about understanding what makes them so good at connecting with people and then finding our own way to do it.
Exactly. Confidence is a journey. It's not like you just arrive one day and you're done. It's all about constantly learning, growing, and trying new things in social situations. What works for one person might not work for another, and that's okay.
It's all about finding what feels real and genuine for you and then just practicing and experimenting.
Totally. And most importantly, have fun. Socializing should be enjoyable, not something that stresses you out.
So true. When you're having fun and being curious, your confidence just shines through. So to all our listeners out there, take on this challenge, observe those magnetic people, try out new things, and keep practicing the confidence skills we've talked about today.
And remember, you already have everything you need to be confident and magnetic. You just have to tap into it.
A huge thank you to our expert for sharing all these awesome insights. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into confidence. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep those inner critics quiet and those conversations flowing.